Westu Halmin Freyon and welcome to another video. Now, an interesting article has caught my attention and was sent to me, and it deals with the Rings of Power, of course, the upcoming atrocity from Amazon that is supposed to come out in September 2022. And it talks about Forodwaith, which is a region in Middle-earth, in the very north of Middle-earth, and it is supposed to be that region in which Xena, the warrior princess, finds herself in the teaser trailer that was released by Amazon just a couple of months ago and was in the center of attention of many people on the internet. Now, I do not know if this piece of information has been officially confirmed by Amazon, but if it is indeed true, you who still care about this pile of donkey manure can be satisfied to know at least of one region that will be in the show that was actually in the books. So, my friends, let us dive into the article and check it out. The Rings of Power's Forodwaith explained. In the first The Lord of the Rings of Power trailer, we see a stunning shot of Galadriel, or Xena, the warrior princess, scaling a cliff in the middle of a turbulent, chilly wasteland covered in snow and ice. In a breakdown of the trailer after the fact, it was made clear that the location is an area of Middle-earth known as the Forodwaith, or Northern Waste. The reveal naturally spawns the easy follow-up question, what is Forodwaith? The term Northern Waste only shows up once in the Lord of the Rings story proper. In the Fellowship of the Ring book, Frodo writes a song about Gandalf after the wizard falls in battle with the Balrog. In that song, the Hobbit adds the words, from Wilderland to Western Shore, from Northern Waste to Southern Hill. That's it, at least until you get to the appendices of the Return of the King. There, in those precious, dense, information-filled endnotes, we get quite a bit more information about this fascinating frozen area of Middle-earth. Since Rings of Power is clearly going into the Forodwaith, we thought we'd join them via a breakdown of what the Forodwaith is, who lives there, yes, people permanently live in that ice block of a country, and what other famous figures have travelled there before the Rings of Power team chose to send Mordif Clark's young Galadriel into the treacherous region. Now, those of us who have read Tolkien's books, The Lord of the Rings, The Appendices, and The Hobbit, and The Silmarillion, and The Unfinished Tale, and so on and so forth, we really don't have to read the next part, but there are people who haven't, so I'm going to continue. The Northern Waste. The word Forodwaith is also called the Northern Waste in most accounts of J.R.R. Tolkien's writings. The only exception is one instance in the introduction to the book Unfinished Tales, where Tolkien's son Christopher says that in one version of his father's writings, the title is condensed to the single word Northernland. In either case, the Forodwaith is a frozen chunk of property away in the north of Middle-earth proper. If you follow a Middle-earth map to the top of the Misty Mountains range, that spine running up the middle of the map, Forodwaith is just beyond the top where the range splits. So here you can see the Misty Mountains, here's the Hobbiton, and here is the Forodwaith, the area in question. This area is just north of Mount Gundabad, the primary stronghold of the Witch King. When he rules his realm of Angmar hundreds of years before the Lord of the Rings takes place. It's also just north of the eastern spur of mountains called the Ered Mithrin, or Grey Mountains. These are connected to the Misty Mountains and located to the north of the Lonely Mountain. I'm not going to read those witty remarks that they have in here. The Northern Waste itself is a bitterly cold area. This is because it's located near the ancient remains of Utumno, the original fortress of the Dark Lord Morgoth, Sauron's original master. While that stronghold was destroyed long before the era of the Rings of Power, the bone-chilling might of its master continues to grip the region after its downfall, turning the area into a perpetually cold place to live. All the way to the west, left on the... Oh, thank you for telling me where the west is. Of the Northern Waste is the Cape of Forochel. This is a giant bay along the ocean where the bulk of the people of the land lives. While the word Forodwaith refers to a region, it is also synonymous with the people who live there. In fact, Tolkien clarifies that the inhabitants give the lands its name, Forodwaith, which translates as people of the north. The Forodwaith live in the north for a long time and are cryptically referred to as men of far-off days, leaving the reader to wonder how far of those days might have been. There's plenty of reason to believe these men could exist as far back as the Second Age and as the Rings of Power story, but it isn't definitely stated. Regardless, by the time we meet them in Tolkien's writings, they're the remnants of the original crew, a group called the Lossoth, or the Snowmen of Forochel. In the appendix to The Return of the King, the Lossoth are called a strange, unfriendly people, a remnant of the Forodwaith, men of far off days accustomed to the bitter colds of the realm of Morgoth. The Lossoth lead bitterly cold lives. They live in literal snow houses and don't need wheel transportation since all of their cars are sled-bound. They are even legendary ice skaters who strap bones to their feet to glide over the ice. Lossoth culture feels tribal and primitive. They lean heavily on their gut instincts and spirituality. They utter prescient statements and can smell danger in the wind, much like the Drúnadain who live near Minas Tirith. As an interesting aside, in some of his earliest writings, Tolkien also used the word Forodwaith to refer to Vikings. While the two groups don't directly connect, it's clear that he wanted to integrate some of these men of the North into his world from very early on. There are dragons in Forodwaith. While there are inhabitants in Forodwaith, there are rather less savoury creatures too. Of particular note, more than once it's mentioned that dragons live in the area. Tolkien says that the wasted lands beyond the Grey Mountains were inhabited by dragons, specifically mentioning cold drakes. Of course, there must be fire drakes living there too, since this is the area where Smaug hails from before he heads south and evicts the dwarf so he can claim the lonely mountain as a new home. Anyway, in The Hobbit, Thorin also explains that there were lots of dragons in the north in those days, speaking of the time before Smaug headed south to attack his people. Whether or not the same monsters would have been present thousands of years earlier in the Second Age isn't stated. However, dragons are present in the War of Wrath at the end of the First Age, and it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that they would continue to be a pest and a threat in the northern regions of Middle-earth between the time and later in the Third Age when we hear about them again. This would mean they could easily factor into the Rings of Power storyline. The last bit about the Forodwaith that we'll mention here is that of Aragorn's ancestors also has a pretty epic adventure there. We're talking about Ranger's ancestor, Arvedui, the last king of Arthedain. Of course, anytime a character's called stupid words, what's important is, starts here. Arvedui starts as the king of the splinter kingdom of Arthedain, a remnant of Gondor's sister kingdom of Arnor in northern Middle-earth. At one point, he gets tangled up on the losing side of a fight with the Witch King of Angmar, who invades his kingdom and crushes it. The king of the land flees north and with a handful of his vassals right into the northern waste. There, it says that he first hides in some old tunnels of abandoned dwarf mines, but hunger drives him to seek the help of the nearby locals. Who are they? Why, the Forodwaith, of course. They're skeptical of this ragged king and his followers, but they build them snow huts and give them some food after some time spent twiddling their thumbs as elven ship arrives and carries the king and his people away. Before that happens, though, the chief of the Forodwaith prophesies that Arvedui should not get on the ship. The king ignores the advice, sails away, and is drowned in an icy storm soon afterward. Interestingly, he leaves his ring behind in gratitude for the help of the snowmen. That ring ends up being the Ring of Barahir, a very important heirloom that is ransomed by Arvedui people later on and eventually finds his way onto the hand of none other than Aragorn himself. Alright, so my friends, what do you think about Forodwaith appearing in the Rings of Power? And of course, is one of the very few things that I've heard of that actually makes sense that this region would be there. Although I do not agree with the fact that Galadriel would be scaling its icy walls in an armor. But I have spoken a lot about that. You can check out my other videos, which are very informative and very entertaining. So let me know in the comments down below what you think, and that will be all. Thank you very much for watching, and Namarie.